Ja, meine Damen und Herren, es wird jetzt so ähnlich sein wie der Einzug der
Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be like the gladiators march in. So, because without my panelists, nothing would work. So, I would like to just put Ms. van Laßberg first because we need her immediately. And come up here, come on up. Gopi will be sitting here, and our seats are here. I would like to welcome all of you, also myself, and as a journalist, it's always interesting and exciting, in fact, to be with you. So because you are our listeners, and I am Andreas Stopp from Deutschlandfunk, and we also do travel reports, and of course with a cultural perspective. And this is exactly what has brought us here, because it is about the so-called intercultural exchange. That is the exchange between us as the tourists and the locals, that is the countries that we visit. And you will all know that when you just walk around the ITB, so you are in the middle of a glittering world. So what I have noticed that when we walk through, and we always think about where can we go, so what do they do for us when we go there on a holiday. And now it is also interesting to see the whole picture from the perspective of the host. So what do the hosts expect from us as tourists? And this is the interesting point. So how can you just make people meet? How can you just organize encounters? And where the guest, I'm not going to call the guest a tourist or a visitor, but a guest. So how can they just get together with people from in the country they visit, and how can they just have their cultural exchange, and what are the benefits of that for both of them? And how can you organize that? How can you support that? So first of all, we would like to have a presentation of facts and figures. And Dietlind from Laßberg is here with us, and she is the chair of the Studienkreis für Tourismus und Entwicklung, so which is the Institute for Tourism and Development. And her research is focused on tourism and development. And so we're going to have the facts and figures from her, and also some interpreting of these facts and figures. So there is a study on tourism in emerging countries and in developing countries. And so this institute, they have taken that point on, but they also have expanded that. So this is kind of a travel analysis. So we first want to have your data. So do you have studies and already some facts and figures about what the guests expect and what the hosts expects? Thank you very much, Mr. Strub, for the introduction. So what I can tell you today is the point of view of what the guest expects. So I think that we will just talk about the hosts later on. So we have a colleague from India who may be telling us more about that. So what I'm going to give you are some of the data so that we have just gathered in a study of the travel analysis. And as you know, so this is a survey that we have carried out in about 8,000 face-to-face interviews. And this is a representative survey, an opinion poll that is carried out every year. And it is a questionnaire that is always the same and is carried out, as I said, regularly on an annual basis. And so there is a focus, however, that differs, and also some modules that may be changing from year to year. And within this analysis, we also have the possibility to ask some individual, some exclusive questions, and this is what our institute does. And we just focus on certain issues, for example, the environmental issues. And in 2012, we asked our question about meeting the locals, and getting to know the local customs and the local people, and how interested people are in that, and what importance they attach to this. So I would like to present to you the first exclusive question that we had, and that was the interest in the local customs and people. So I'm going to present that to you. I'm not really sure whether everybody can read that. So our question was, if you just want to plan a trip to an emerging country or a developing country such as Mexico, Kenya, Indonesia, Egypt, or Turkey, then I want the following things. So we're going to go from top to bottom. And then the first possibility that they could take, whether they agree with that, is that they want to have some information about the local customs and people before I set off. And then the second possibility is that they want to have information by a guide about local customs during the excursions. And the third possibility is that you can only get to know a country really well when you talk to the locals. The fourth statement was that people would like to talk to locals about their country and its people. And then another statement is that people wanted to meet the locals in everyday lives and just not really in a tourist setting. And another statement is that the people wish to meet with locals that have the same jobs or the same hobbies. And another statement is that that people want to do just go out on their own initiative to get to know the country and its people. So we just carried out this survey so that we wanted to find out how interested people are in encounters with the locals. And then towards the very end, we talked about the social responsibility of companies. And this is very important for Studiosus, for example. And with regard to CSR, so the statements were that people might wish to book their trips with companies that take their social responsibility seriously, and that the second statement, or the final statement, was that they wish to visit some development projects that Germany supports locally. So just that was a really quick run through. So when you just see the green part, then this is where people agree with the statement. So first of all, with the general interest in the local customs and people, so you have quite a lot of agreeing that. That is, just about 2/3 of all the Germans say that it is an important point for them. So if you then go down to the 5 statements where it is about meeting locals, then we have about 20 or 40%. That is 2/5 of the Germans interested in that, of the German population. Oh, no, to put it in other words, it is about 1/3, really, that is interested in getting together with locals to talk to them in various degrees. So some just want to chat with them, some others would really like to get to know them, or some others would like to just meet people with the same jobs or hobbies. And then just look down to the other questions here. So when their interest in locals is then offset with people saying that they just want to just enjoy their free time and they just want to be lazy and be left alone. So this is about the same. So you just have, it is that has an interesting comparison. And maybe when you just go down and look at the questions, or rather statements on CSR, so 43% agree with saying that they would rather book with organizers taking their CSR seriously. And so then 30% or 35% are the people who are undecided, or rather indifferent. So they don't really have an opinion on that. So that's the gray part in the middle, and the blue part that you see on the right-hand side, that these are people who just are not interested at all, who don't agree with the statements. So let me just now continue with my presentation. So what you've just seen is the agreement or non-agreement of the German population, but that of course covers people who have never traveled to a long-distance destination, and so some of them may not have been really in the position to have an opinion or to give their opinion. So what we just looked at the green pillar here. So these are the people who have already visited developing countries and who have had experience with meeting locals. And here you see that their agreement is in fact 10% higher than the agreement with the sentence of being interested in local customs and people of the general population. So you see here everywhere that in this next part with the interests of people in meeting locals, that is the experienced people between 2009 2011, and so here so you see that people who are more interested in local customs and people, so who have traveled to Northern Africa, so in Tunisia, Egypt, for example, and then you see the red part, and people having traveled a developing country or an emerging country in the last 3 years, and you see in the red figures that that they are much more interested in it than with the other destinations. So you have a color coding here. So the yellow is for people having traveled to Turkey, the orange is for Northern Africa, and red are the developing countries. So then we just looked at the answers of people who have done study trips or have some other kind of experience in developing countries, and that was then just contrasted with people just with only all-inclusive or packaged tour experience. So you see the people who have booked, or rather have had an all-inclusive trip in the past 3 years, and they also say that they are interested in people, and it's about that they want to know about that. That is quite high, but also meeting the locals is about 43%, and then the darker blue is the ones that means the people who have booked a study trip, and of course they are much more interested in getting information, but also in meeting people. So, so here when we have another edition about the organized excursions, whether they are interested in that, and that is kind of an exception, but that doesn't sound to be in the rule. So I think that was just a problem with our method, because when you already have booked a study trip, you don't want to have additional excursions booked for you. So much about the answers to these exclusive questions and in our overall questionnaire. And then we took another step, and we try to find out whether there are people who can be categorized by types. So we just identified 4 types, and then we can just see that their interest in meeting locals are different. So we have a type 1, so that is about 9% of the German population, which is rather small, so they are not really interested at all in meeting the locals. They are just interested in just enjoying their free time and relaxing and just having a good time. So, but they have somehow a limited interest in information about the local people. And then type 2, so there's about 44% of the German population. This is the type that is rather undecided or indifferent with regard to meeting people, but they do have an interest in information about the country and its people. Then there's type 3. That is the type that is very interested in meeting locals, and these people usually want to have these meetings and encounters in an organized frame, and they're highly interested in meeting locals and also in receiving information about the country and its people. So that is 33% of people who have already traveled to emerging countries or developing countries. And then there's also a type 4, and that is the type of people who are very interested in meeting locals, but they don't really want to have a package tour for that. So they want to just go out on their own initiative, and they are very, very highly interested in meeting locals and getting information. That's only 14%. So then with the type 1, for example, this is the the type that is not really interested in meeting locals, and they are not interested in going out on their own initiative. And type 2 is indifferent towards meeting locals, and but they are interested in information about that. And type 3, that is the type that is of interest to us, so with the study tours, and these are people who are interested in local customs and people, but they do not want to just go on their own initiative, but they want to have a tour organized for them. And then type 4, that is the person who's traveling alone, and of course they have a high interest in meeting people while they're traveling. I'd like to talk a bit more about type 3 and type 4, because these are the people interested in meeting locals. Let's have a closer look at them. So the type 3, they want to have organized encounters with the locals, and they are very much interested in receiving information about the country and its people beforehand, and they want to have information about also that is conveyed to them by a guide, and they are very interested in meeting locals. And for Studiosus, it might also be interesting to find out that they want to book with a company that is doing something in the CSR frame. So the type 4 is different. So type 3, again, is more or less just to be found everywhere in the population. But let me now talk about type 4. So they are highly interested in meeting locals, and they are the ones who want to travel individually and take their own initiative. So this is the type we all know. So, and we have one here. So this is somebody like Johannes Klaus, young, male, world savvy, always on the go, and always interested in meeting the locals in every country that he visits. So let me now show you my last slide, and this is the representation of the types in the population. Well, for us, type 3 and type 4 are interesting, and so we just looked at people who have already had some experience with study tours, and it is actually no experience that when in type 3 and type 4, so they of course represented to a higher degree than among the general population. So much from me, so much about the data. So maybe just a brief conclusion that I can give you. So there is an interest in meeting locals, and there are very clear market segments about that, and mainly in the organized travel sector, but also the individual travelers. So those who have already done that will tell us more about their experience right now. So thank you very much.
Meine Damen und Herren, übrigens, Sie profitieren ganz.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a brand new study that has just come out. It actually has not yet come out, as we've heard, but you are the ones that are already in the know. But in the next couple of days, well, weeks, should I say, it will come out. And for those of you who want to Nemo, I have a few flyers with me, so you can pick them up later on. So you're some of these happy few that already know the main findings of that studies. This is the 28th Studiosus meeting here today. Studiosus is the leading provider of study travel, and obviously, therefore, we're very much interested in these study results, because this is precisely the market segment that also Studiosus is catering to, and it poses a major interest there. Now, if you look at all those statistics, Danix, and if I interpret that right, it's the fact that almost half of the target group is open and open-minded towards meeting other people. Now, Ms. von Laßberg, in addition to your academic work, can we also ask you, have you gained an insight in why cultural travel is so important for us, generally for human beings? I think when we travel and we meet and we want to see foreign countries, then this is a general enriching experience if you get in contact with people living in the country, to actually talk to them, be able to literally touch them. And I think that makes for any enriching travel experience in many ways. So you have a chance to get into contact with other people in the broadest sense of the word. The Institute for Tourism and Development, where you're also active, is particularly committed for socially compatible travel, sustainable travel for that matter. And there's also a reason for that. You're also awarding the To Do Award. What is the To Do Award doing? The To Do Award has been existing now for 18 years, which is covering or identifying projects worldwide, and will then be receiving that prize, which are engaged in terms of a socially compatible or sustainable tourism, where local people are involved in the planning of a tourism program. They derive a tangible benefit, both in financial terms, but also in human terms from tourism, and meet travelers on an equal footing. We have 44 of these projects from 33 countries that have received that award, and the latest one of yesterday was Gopi. He's here. What we didn't know when we invited him, so it's a great pleasure to have him here as an award winner. The Gopinath Parayil To Do Award winner, and I think you can take great pride in such an award. His agency or his travel company, and he has to explain to us what it really is, what he does, what his company is about, because that is very important. The Blue Yonder. He's from Kerala, from India, where he works, and this is where he's at home also. He's the founder and the CEO of the Blue Yonder. And we'll change over into English then. It's a social enterprise. But before Mr. Parayil will talk about what it is and how you bring together local people and tourists, I said Gopinath is your name, but I know that friends can call you Gopi. Now, if I was going to travel to India, what do I need to do in order to gain that confidence so that I have the right to call you Gopi?
Und so einfach ist interkulturelle Begegnung.
This is how easy intercultural meeting is. No problem at all. But you know what I'm talking about, obviously. We want to develop an interest for your cultures. Is that also, as a host, something that you adopt and you open the doors? Do you bring people into your houses, ask us, we tell you? Or is there still a barrier? Is there still a separation in place between your worlds and the incoming travelers?
Not really. The reason we all want to travel is because we want to have meaningful experience. I think the days of swimming pool tourism is over, where you just go to India, sit around a swimming pool for 5 days and come back. People still do that. I hope Studiosus is not doing that. So, yeah, it's basically about meaningful experience. So in our case, I've been in business only now for about 8 years. So it's a very small company. So the kind of travelers who are coming to us actually is coming through a filtering process, because they are choosing us because we are into sustainable travel or meaningful travel or experiential travel or responsible travel. So in our case, we hardly see any sort of barrier, because they know what they are looking for, and we are very clear about what we can offer. And much more than that, we are very clear about what we do not want to offer. So that communication is actually done even in the first contact. So I would say there's hardly any barrier for us.
Das Interessante bei Ihrer
Now, what is interesting in your type of travel or the services that you provide is that you work together with people, with local companies, with craftspeople, so the grassroots people, to try and fascinate them about the tourism trade. Now, how does that work specifically? Imagine, say, you have a fisherman whose bread-winning activity is, well, fishing, basically. How do you bring that fisherman in contact with travelers?
First of all, we do not run any tourism projects per se, because I know To Do Awards are always focusing on projects. But what I always tell my colleagues, as well as the community I work with or with the industry, is that we are not introducing any tourism project, but what we do are mostly development projects. These are sustainable development projects that ensures that the quality of life of the local people can be high, where they can maintain a standard of lifestyle, which ensures that we are creating better places for people to live, which again ensures that there is an opportunity for people like you to travel to countries like India. So I'll just give you one example of a project that we launched last year. This is a rice project from Kerala. closer to Fort Cochin. And there is one variety of rice in Kerala which is grown in just less than 3,000 hectares of land. And this is the only variety of rice in the whole world that can tolerate salinity. So imagine in times of global warming, when the seawater level is increasing and water is coming inland, farmers know that it's difficult to do the farming. They know that the paddy will not grow in the salt water. And for us, this is a gold mine. That this particular rice, which is actually red in color, yesterday the whole day I was walking around with the grain. I don't have it anymore with me. And this is actually a solution for many low-lying coastal areas in countries like Bangladesh, Maldives, Sri Lanka, including India, eastern part of India. So what we are trying to do is, we found that, okay, this particular rice can tolerate salinity. So as a tour operator, what we are doing is, we went to the communities, we went to the cooperatives, local banks, we went to other panchayats, which are basically the decentralized government services in India. And we told them that, we found out, how much does it cost for them to farm? And they said, per hectare, it cost us this much. And then first thing we did is, okay, we commit that money to ensure that you do continue the farming. The main reason they are no longer interested in this farming is the yield is very less. You can grow this only once in a year. And when there are a lot of genetically modified rice or heavily fertilized rice, which is giving you extra yield, people are interested in that. The farmers, they can earn money. So what we are offering them is, whatever is your cost to produce that, we pay that money. And then the second part is, whatever you're producing, we guarantee that we will purchase it. So many of my colleagues, first thing they asked is, oh my God, we are a tour operator, why the hell do we need rice? So my answer is that there are so many properties in Fort Cochin who might be interested in offering this rice to their customers. And this rice has a beautiful story. It's the only variety of the rice in the whole world that can tolerate salinity. That itself is a story. This is what the guests are looking for. Whatever they consume, whether it's rice or food or whether travel experience, that they are looking for unique experiences. So based on that, the hotelier offering the food in the restaurant is gaining business. The farmer is already gotten the business from us, and then we are making money by running the day trips from the hotel to these places.
Sie haben uns gerade erklärt,
Now, you just explained to us what travelers expect and what they want to see. Now, from your point of view, what do you expect of your travelers? Now, how should we behave when we travel to your country to visit?
I know common sense is not so common, but what we always request is just use common sense. Observe, see how locals behave. Like simple things like when you come into a country like India, many houses, when you enter, you always leave your shoes outside. It's basically common. It's no rocket science. I'm always surprised when people ask me these questions in a very serious way. Just observe and then follow the locals. That's a simple thing.
Es hört sich einfach an. Es ist vielleicht in der Praxis nicht immer.
It sounds easy, but it maybe is not always easy in practice. But there's someone, I think, who for 14 months has been traveling across the world, if I remember correctly, is Johannes Klaus, who's here today. He has done many things. He's a graphics designer, and he gave up a couple of years ago and said, I'll set out on my world journey. And that's what he did, 14 months, as I said. And he operates a travel blog. Some of you will know that. Reisen is the name of it in German. And you're welcome to have a look at that. Reisen.de. It's a very carefully crafted site, if you will. And he's going to tell us about it. And he's actually gathering a number of authors who contribute in this blog on their individual travel experiences. But Mr. Klaus, what you did during those 14 months as a single traveler, if you will, with a backpack, was that easy for you to immerse into the different cultures, or have you been out after 2 days before that real good link was set up? Well, the answer is, it is complicated. Meeting people when you're on the go is not only the reason why I'm doing that, but it's actually the main reason why I go in the first place. It's very enriching for me personally. When you come to a country, you come right by the border, like in Armenia, for instance, and go from Armenia to Iran. And right at the border crossing point, I've been asked by a man and his daughter to come join them at their home in Isfahan. Now, that is amazing and fascinating, and it's personally so enriching that you see those differences. What would happen like in Germany? Would I invite complete strangers to my home? Probably wouldn't. And for me personally, that is has been a very valuable experience. But then, having said that, it's also difficult, I think, to overcome those cultural differences in many ways. Now, was there an example where you had a hard time overcoming those differences to really immerse in people's cultures? Was that religious experiences or other things? Well, basically everywhere, across the board, if you will. Because sometimes people say, well, there's no big differences around the world, but there are. I think in terms of characters and ranging all the way to general perception of the world that is ever so much different in different countries. So I find it hard when you talk about humor, you know, anecdotes and jokes that are told differently, and that happens in Germany also, I must say, certainly. But it is yet entirely different when you travel to different countries. Different perceptions of how the world functions are fundamentally different, and therefore it can be very difficult to, you know, come to a joint basis of reference. Now, as you just said, you've been talked to by people from in Iran. Now, is that because you were so open and you were approaching people, or were you actually, you know, straightforwardly knocking on people's doors? Now, one reason why I'm traveling on my own is I'm approachable for people. It's easier to get in contact with people, much easier than if you were traveling as a couple or in a group, in a larger group. But one other reason for me to travel on my own is I'm challenging myself. I'm actually a very shy person. I am not really very communicative in terms of reaching out to people. But that's, if you will, type of self-therapy. I'm actually forced to approach other people and to talk to people, and it works really well. But again, I'm also open towards others as well. So it's a two-way street. But wouldn't it be easy for you to travel in a group then? Because if you had a travel guide who's in the driver's seat showing you X, Y, Z, giving an insight in a different culture, wouldn't that be more ideal for you to travel? No, not at all. Because I don't want to have others present experiences to me. I want to discover it for myself. I want to have a genuine experience there rather than having anything organized for me. So certainly it wouldn't be a way for me to travel. I mean, it's the worst thing that could happen for me is a zoo situation. So you go somewhere and you see there's the funny locals that are playing and playing their drums and dancing around you. Then you're allowed to take some photos and then off you go. That would be horrific, and rather stay at home rather than to see something like that.
Out of business.
Diese soziale Verantwortung.
But the social responsibility that we just talked about, did you feel that as a traveler? So did you in any way consider yourself to being socially responsible for what you've seen in some country and what you've seen or heard? Well, I feel responsible in the sense that I'm representing my country, my home country where I come from, and therefore I want to behave properly. I want to adapt myself to the local customs and habits. But basically, I'm moving around, well, quite naturally, and as I normally would elsewhere. In a way, you know, that you're not offending people like any normal human being would be. Common sense, again. By the way, for that travel blog, reisedepesche.de, in 2011, you won the Grimme Online Award, which is a sought-after prize in this country. So that page probably is good. So it's great to have you in on the panel here, and stay on for some more discussion. So he's the individual guy with the individual approach, and you did that for more than a year. Just the backpack on your back, yeah? That's right. Yeah. I appreciate that. Now, in terms of comfort and convenience, Studiosus travelers have an easier time, and this is where Peter Strub comes into play. You're also trying to make genuine encounter possible, and you're also one of those travel operators that are not selling just beach holidays, where the Maldivian drummers just come in, play something, and walk back again. But Peter Strub is a historian by trade and has a major in Roman studies, and since 1992, he has been part of the Studiosus Reisen travel management group. You have been a travel guide all your life. You're back at university. You traveled around to Greece, I understand. You were a travel guide in Greece? Yeah, different countries. That certainly was true. It was a good mix of my theoretical knowledge that I picked up in school and then applying it locally, because I was always wondering who would be interested for what you learn at university. What are you doing with it in life? So that I found was a very useful application of my skills. But that tells you, dear students in the room, it works. So sometimes after university, you'll be sitting on a panel here, like Mr. Strub. Now, what about Greece there? You said you never really lost track of Greece. And we're not only talking about long-distance destinations, also our neighboring countries, European neighboring countries. Do you think that we understand Greece and the Greeks? Has there been enough exchange going back and forth that even in this situation of crisis, we know how those Greek people work? I don't think at all. I mean, there's a lot of misunderstanding and preconceived notions, and we also see that with our travelers, especially the meetings and the contacts we'd like to establish will be focused on the current political agenda, and we're trying to understand how people work, how they perceive us, they respond to different items or articles in the press. Maybe that how do they understand a situation where many Germans or some Germans feel actually cautioned to travel to that country because they're afraid of any victimization or pressure. So therefore, it makes it ever so much interesting to use current events and to organize trips like that. You could say that in the last couple of decades, tourism has failed to draw on those political agendas. Yeah, you know, it's not only people that are traveling, there's always governments. Governments have responsibility for certain things in life, and that has an impact on the life of people. But research now agrees and proves the fact that with a number of initiatives, including ones showcased at ITB, can actually alleviate many things. It's like the Germans traveling to Greece. You know, it's not extreme scenarios like going from Armenia to Iran. Help us to reduce tension. And doing that in a group or with group travel is not always the easiest thing to do. Group travelers are not within a group 24/7 because they certainly also have time and some latitude to do individual stuff. I mean, in the first couple of days, it may be important for travel guides to brief people about what are the do's and don'ts, what are the door openers in that country. And then when those group travelers have some spare time, they find it much easier actually to behave in Armenia, or what would they do in Iran. I traveled across that border myself from Armenia to Iran, and I was amazed myself. You cross a bridge, a couple of kilometers, and an entirely different world you dive into, and you need to know how you should behave there, what you should do. You know, every 20 meters here on ITB, you have to change your expectations. It's the Greeks that you kiss on their cheeks on the left and right, and then you think there's a South American there. Well, we only kiss each other if we're close relatives. Men are hugging themselves, not kissing. And again, coming back to the Iran experience, if a man is trying to shake a woman's hand with a hand stretched out, that's not acceptable, whereas it is in Armenia. So this is precisely where travel guides come in to prepare that, to brief people about the local specificities, to pay attention, and to make such spontaneous meetings possible even during group travel. So the do's and don'ts that you talked about are important. Your institute also has something available, which is the likability indices. I mean, these are also something that you are trying to focus on. So at the institute's webpage, also you find those likability magazines for each country. But what do you do in specific terms? You inform your travelers, and then tourists know how they should react when they meet other people. What else? Do you prepare more, or do you leave it up to the personal expectations of travelers? Now, for us as tour operators, it is important to create the conditions, a good playing field. I mean, there can be spontaneous meetings like you had at the border crossing point, but there can also be organized sort of encounters. We have an impact also on those spontaneous encounters by planning our routes or the trips in such a way that you have a chance to meet other people by, you know, riding on the public transport, not to save costs, but to be in contact. You know, take a ferry across the Nile River, even if there's a bridge. maybe more interesting, because on that ferry you can talk to people or select your hotels in such a way that they're either centrally located, that if you leave your hotel, getting right out of the hotel doors, you can link up with people, or there's a coffee shop or a pub where you meet the locals. So create the environment that is conducive to encounter, I think, is important. And then also, we also have organized meetings, in quotes, where we are trying to bring people together. So we certainly also do that. So bring our travelers together with the locals. So, you know, drawing on a number of special interest groups. And that may be very interesting for people to meet those special people who are will then continue to keep up that contact for many years to go. So where you have a German-speaking abbot in a Greek monastery, for instance, or to meet Orhan Pamuk's translator in Istanbul. I mean, it's not like you pull up her name on a travel app once you're in Istanbul and just ring on her door and say, you know, can I have a cup of tea with you? So you want to prepare that as well, finding the good and interesting people and to, you know, make preparations for that. Intense cooperation with people. Mr. Klaus, have you been standing in front of a closed door before in your life where you would like to have got in and couldn't? I've never really tried to achieve anything special. What I do when I travel, I'm just walking about, see what's happening, without actually planning for it or making arrangements. I may have been standing in front of a closed door, but I didn't worry about it too much. But I absolutely understand what you're saying. Yeah. Some degree of organization would be required, and then you can talk to those interesting people. Now, Ms. van Laßberg, do you think we need to consider ourselves to be responsible for ensuring good encounter with the local people? What about our responsibility that we have vis-à-vis others? Now, when it comes to organized meetings and organized encounters, as Mr. Strub has said, as a tour operator, yes, you do have some, obligations in the sense that you want to make sure that any contact is satisfying for both sides. And this is where the role of the travel guide comes in. As you said, not everything can be spontaneous. You have to prepare both the hosts and the guests for some events to take place. So the group that you take to on that trip should also be in the right mindset, which is normally not something that will happen spontaneously. In other words, people need to know who's coming, how many are those, what do they want, what do you want to talk about, etc. And so planning is key, no doubt about it. You know, if 20 people meet another 20 people, it's different from a one-to-one contact. So the time has to be allotted for that, etc., and many more of those things. And I've been in some of these myself, which is important. You need to follow up on that. So say after a group has met another one, you know, maybe we continue to discuss about that, follow up on that, rather than let it just fizzle out. Now, something that has always been seen is these meetings, these encounters have been very moving for travelers. Even if things going wrong, you feel if you follow up on it, well, maybe we shouldn't have taken out our cameras like we did and, you know, covered people with photographs. So you raise an awareness of people, make them much more sensitive, and the second time round they will behave differently, I'm sure. This is precisely what our responsibility is, and maybe this is precisely what we want to do to derive a positive experience.
Gopinath, Parayil, so you're just following what we are discussing from our German perspective, and so what is your perspective on all that in practical life? So do you think that many things fail when people actually want to meet locals, and then they fail for some just trivial reason, for languages or ignorance about culture or religions? Do you think that we can just cross all these borders, or do people then just get frustrated easily and just think, oh, what's the point? So what is your experience about that?
I'm sorry, I have to wait for the translator.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Begegnung braucht Zeit.
So,
well, encounters need time.
What we've been doing in the last 8 years is we've been creating products which were passionate for us, which were personal for us. And I don't know how many of you actually know the background of my company. We started as a river conservation project 8 years ago as a not-for-profit, then ran out of money, then got into business to create more wealth so that we are not running after grants and funds, so that we wanted to be truly sustainable. And at the time, we were passionate about our place, and we started telling the world that we have something like this, and we didn't do any market study. We didn't see what the Germans wanted or the English or Americans wanted. We created a product which we thought had a true potential, and it was so inspiring for us personally, and we thought there was a story. So we went out to the markets. It took such a long time for the industry to respond to us. For example, I was just telling Peter this morning that 7 years ago I was in his office telling, hey, Gopi, I run a company called Blue Yonder. In 8 years, we never did business. But now things are changing. Not that Studiosus has started working with me, but we started observing how the market functions. So what we did last year was, we do pretty decent business now. Wherever we went to the market, whenever we talk to the tour operator, first answer they tell us is, oh, we've been working in India for 15 years, 20 years. We have a DMC there, so we don't want to look at another partner. One is, industry in Germany are not adventurous at all. They're so used to certain system, and they love it. They want to, this is how they work. This is my experience. Same story, it's not just German. You go to French market, I might have spoken to almost literally every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the French market to promote my business. They all know me by name, they know my company. Many of them, whenever I go to Paris, they still buy me sushi, but we never work. The reason is they are not ready to look at experiential travel. They are not looking at a product that could change their customer. So what we do is, we are bypassing that now because we got technology. This is something that industry has to know here in the sense of you keep on ignoring what's happening, what is the demand of your own consumer. Lifestyle is changing, the demands are changing, they are becoming more and more whom I call as a cultural creatives. They are not average tourists, they are travelers. They are cultural creatives. They want to spend their money in destination that will make a difference with local people. So what I am doing from my company is we are putting our money into technology. We are looking at trends, and we are reaching out to them directly. If Studiosus doesn't understand what I'm doing, or Kony doesn't understand what I'm doing, that's fine. Because we've got a huge platform of internet where I can reach directly to you, tell my story in your language. So to support that initiative, last year we launched a study where one of my colleagues, Mariska, she traveled through Northern Europe, meeting up my travelers of past 5 years, asking them their traveler's perspective. As a traveler, why did you choose a company like Blue Yonder? Or why did you choose a company like XYZ, and what was your experience? That gave us so much of insight, and one of the core insight of that for us is, most of the travelers we interviewed, they told us, what is an ordinary experience for you as a local is an extraordinary experience for us as a traveler. So for me, that is my product development. So this is the kind of stuff that we develop because I just need to, many things that I take for granted in my day-to-day life is an extraordinary experience for you. Simple things like a cow in the highway.
Es klingt ziemlich ideal, was da macht, und wir wissen auch, es funktioniert auch so, und vielleicht ist das.
So it sounds very ideal what you're doing. So maybe you are setting an exemplary case so that others should follow. So his type of business is not a common one. So but it is just spreading. So he's one of the most innovative companies. I just wanted to mention that so that you are not only getting data so that is most recent, but you also are getting the description of the concept of how to get tourism together with everyday life. So I would like to hear from all three of you. So from Mr. Parayil, Mr. Strub, and Mr. Klaus, do you think that that people can really meet at a level playing field? So of course, Mr. Strub, you have a sound customer basis, but I don't think that you rest on your laurels at all. So I think it is easy in some countries because then we have a level playing field, for example, in Europe, so with our neighboring countries. But in others, we just have to make sure that we just have equals meet. So sometimes it is just that the people think that the guests feel superior to the locals, but sometimes it is the other way around. So with the Tuareg, for example, they're a very proud nation in Africa, or for example, people in Eastern Africa who feel superior to the tourists. And they just think, oh yeah, so they want to take pictures and they find me exotic and they're interested in the different way that I look, but they're not interested in me. So then that is an imbalance, of course. So I believe that we have to just recreate the balance. And for this, it is very important what Mrs. Laßberg said, that you have your planning right. So that you just set up rules for the tour guide and, for example, say that when people just violate that principle of equality, that they interfere. So we have some people just carried away with their emotions and their feelings, and then when they just take out their cameras, nonetheless, although they were told that they shouldn't, because they want to take pictures. They think that is just so wonderful, and I believe that we need to have some kind of code that the tour guides can interfere. So Mara Indian in Bolivia, for example, would they accept to be photographed? And maybe they do, because they think that people have funded their library, but then that is not an equal playing field, is it? So Mr. Strub, so we can't go into detail, but with respect to photo travels, so I just get out of the car, take a picture, and get back in. So is that what you're talking about? And have you developed your code of conduct against that? So, well, I mean, I can't go into detail about all this code of conduct, because what we talk about is also the time before people go travel. So then you just set a frame for why people travel, where they travel, and what they want to do there. So if we're at the beginning, so we were just trying to organize meetings 20, 30 years ago. So when people met in a classroom sitting opposite each other, and just like in a ballroom lesson, so everybody was just slightly embarrassed and it was an awkward situation. So we have come a long way from that. So it is not only that our guests should not violate any type of rules or the code of conduct, but rather also the locals. But sometimes they misbehave. Maybe they want to just be in the missionaries. And for example, when you meet representatives of religious minorities and or ethnic minorities, that they want to just convince the group of their opinion, of their position. So I believe that the tour operator and the tour guide, they have to just also give some feedback and see what happened and why, and because sometimes people don't go there any longer and nobody knows why. Mr. Klaus, so you're doing some travel journalism, I would say, so that in the broadest sense, and I'm sure that your type of journalism is a very good one. So do you think that this is some type of a substitute to just really going out to yourself and meet people? So, well, I mean, I would see that as an addition. So I believe for people who are at home, they can just read about what can happen, what could happen to me if I were to travel alone. And I think it is also a point of making people understand what the situation is like, and not only just convey some facts, but also just some personal experience and some personal emotions. And I believe that this is quite exciting and interesting, and you can just make a difference through that and maybe inspire people to go out and travel. So where's your next trip going to? So, I mean, but you say that you can only just write about something that you've experienced yourself. So where are you going next time? So, well, in a very innovative destination, I'm going to Thailand. So are you also going to take your backpack then? So you're just doing the same thing everywhere? Just a backpack only? So how long do you need to stay in a country in order to get to know it? So is there some kind of rule of thumb about that? I believe it is a question of the mentality, of the mindset of the people that you meet. But in order to really set up a good friendship, a good relationship, then you need a long time, of course. So, Mrs. Fern Laßberg, what is your estimate? So you have given us all these facts and figures and all these data. So and it doesn't look too bad, because I was just expecting that people would just want to lie back and relax and are not interested at all. So I mean, in your picture, it looks as if they are interested. So, but what do you think? I mean, do you think that this is an all rosy picture, or is there also some bald spot? So, well, of course, I have experienced situations in which the partners that met were not equal and where mistakes were made on both sides. And I believe in this in all this context of meeting and encounters with locals, I believe that we have to just go on just improving this region. Also, Studiosus has to do that. So sometimes people just start on the wrong foot. And so, for example, when they just had a group of 20 people just meeting another 20 people, maybe then they find out that it doesn't work. So when you just want to meet people, then actually there are no strict rules, but it is rather a slow getting to know how to just go about that. And I believe that tour operators neglect that point. I mean, there are a few who are interested and do their research and their studies, but intercultural tourism, intercultural travel, so I believe that we have to improve a lot, and there will be some mistakes also in the future. So, well, you have come back to the question that we try to answer, and I believe that we have answered that. But you are all interested in this topic because, I mean, you have come here, but also you have come to the ITB. So we will just get you our scientific advice in the future. And Gopi, I believe that we have shown ourselves to be as open to you as people in Kerala just appeared to us when we go there to guests. So we not only want to be friendly to our guests during the ITB, but also everywhere. So if you had some other different opinions, so don't tell us. So we just hope that we will just be good hosts or are good hosts. So, Mr. Klaus, we're going to read your blog and find out what you have experienced in Thailand. And of course, Studiosus is a safe bet if you don't want to travel alone, but you want to rely on somebody who can organize that for that, who can just give you some ideas of what to do. So that's it. Yeah, just another point you want to make? Okay.
I was just listening to you both, and you were talking about the equal, the level playing game. And then I was just reading the title. Funny that I didn't really notice it. Holiday encounters with local. That word encounter actually makes me feel like I'm wild, and I don't think like as a host. I think encounter with that's not really a level playing field. That's why I feel it's an encounter that it sounds like something that's happening in the wilderness. Maybe we should rephrase that a bit.
Gut, dass nochmal darauf hingewiesen hat. Danke fürs Zuhören. Wir übergeben wieder an den Zeremonienmeister, der.
So we're going to give the floor back to the Master of Ceremony.
I want to thank our panelists.